It's for the kids. Anyways, how y'all feel out there? World events held in places with human rights abuses. I'm not going to say the names of these countries, the flags. It says, why is the West suddenly upset about Qatar but silent about these places? I saw some damn clips that's really interesting about how they were doing these Israeli journalists when they was going over there to cover the World Cup. Really giving them a hard time. The journalists from Israel. Let me read this. It says, Canada will partially host the FIFA World Cup 2026. And then it says, over 1,381 Indigenous children were found buried at 6 former Canadian government-run residential schools. Minorities continued to experience systemic racism, including in interactions with police forces. Indigenous people lack health care facilities and live in underfunded and overcrowded housing. Canada transfers weapons to Colombia despite militarized repression of protesters. Reports of sexual assault and harassment of female inmates by male prison staff. So yeah, they're talking about Canada there, and I'll be saying like Canada, they play the role of the good guy, but they do it really well. I think it's like, again, I'll be talking about good cop, bad cop, and Canada will be the good cop. Let me read another one. It says the U.S. will host the Summer Olympics in 2028 and partially host the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Multiple states enacted anti-LGBT right laws, including a ban on gender-affirming health care for transgender minors. Abortion is illegal in multiple states. Muslim men remain indefinitely detained in the U.S. military in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in violation of international law. American authorities have been reported to detain child migrants in unsafe conditions and human cages. Over 1 million Iraqis were murdered throughout the American-led occupation of Iraq. Those are touchy subjects. It says the Israelis hosted Eurovision in 2019, Miss Universe in 2021. The Israeli apartheid system maintained its oppression and domination over all Palestinians. The systemic genocide of Palestinians with Israel citizenship and those in the West Bank and Gaza. The 15-year siege and blockade of Gaza. Israeli settlements and cities like Tel Aviv are built on Palestinian land. Palestinians are killed and expelled so Israelis can live in it. In 2021, Israelis killed 6 Palestinian children per month. 500 to 700 Palestinian kids are kidnapped and held in Israeli military prisons every year. That's touchy. Let me read this one. The UK hosted the Champions League final in 2011 and 2013. The UK sold over $20 billion in weapons to countries that violate human rights and conduct war crimes. The UK illegally invaded Iraq and did not leave until 2011. Torture, sexual violence, and other abuses were reported in detention centers where UK forces operated. Some Iraqi detainees died as a result of mistreatment or were killed by British soldiers. Over 1 million Iraqis were killed throughout the Western occupation of Iraq. They could have wrote that better, and they could have made a whole bunch of more bullet points for this one right here. Let me read another one. It says, China hosted the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. China is committed a genocide against the Uyghur Muslim population, including persecution, mass detention, and disappearances, surveillance, and forced sterilization and forced labor, restrictions on freedom of speech and freedom of religion. China is encroaching on Hong Kong's autonomy and freedom. Human rights issues include arrest and detention of protesters, restrictions on freedom of speech. Let's go on. South Africa hosted the FIFA World Cup in 2010. During the World Cup, there was an increase in police harassment of homeless South Africans refugees and migrants living in shelters or high density inner city accommodation. People were removed from their homes in violation of domestic law prohibiting forced evictions. FIFA World Cup requirements in host cities were used by police to expel homeless people and street traders from controlled access sites and zones around World Cup events. Most South Africans did not benefit from the World Cup and had to deal with an increase of social inequities and poverty. I think they could have did a better job with the bullet points on that one too. Brazil hosted the 2014 FIFA World Cup. Labor deaths related to the construction of the 2014 World Cup. Reports of torture in police stations and detention centers. In 2014, protesters and estimated 20,000 children were imprisoned in Brazilian jails. About 250,000 people were forcefully removed from their homes to build the 2014 World Cup stadium. Yeah, so those examples right there are kind of bad for this argument because all of that could have been put up under Qatar. Like, yeah, you could have put that under Qatar, pretty much all of that. And that's what they're complaining about Qatar. So that's why they're saying. But I feel like whoever, man, the World Cup is all these countries playing against each other. So I think that, it's fair to move the World Cup around in these different countries. All of the countries aren't going to be, perfect all the damn time. Like, not to give Qatar a break. I'm just saying any other countries that they choose to put it in, you could probably find something on them. And again, not to lessen anything Qatar does, but how do you choose one country from another? And then I can't help but to feel like it's a Muslim thing. You know what I'm saying? All of these other countries they named were like Christian, Jewish people. Let me see. Except for China. But yeah, so, I think it's a Muslim thing that they're just hating on them for that. It's like, I don't know what it is. I was talking to my little nephew about it. And it's like the thing with the freaking how Christians feel about Muslims is such a brainwashing, man. It's so brainwashing. It's so ridiculous. Because I grew up mother Christian, dad Muslim. And I've been to the mosque and I've been to 100,000 churches. I've been to a lot of mosques. And I can really see you guys, okay? I can really see it. You guys are looking at this thing from the outside, looking in, and you think you know, but it's like you really just have that attitude that your religion is the right one and everybody else's is wrong, so you're not even trying to hear anything from over there. It's like, what do they do? It was a lady, I was working at Home Depot one time, and somehow we were talking about Islam, and she said, what do? Do they worship the devil? And I was like, I couldn't even find the words to answer that. I was just like flabbergasted that where does this come from? Where does that idea come from? But let me tell you what I know for sure, from what I can see, real life. The difference between Muslims and Christians is like almost non-existent. I swear. When it comes down to the scriptures, when it comes down to like what they believe, what you're supposed to be doing related to the book and so forth and so on, Muslims and Christians, they're the most alike, I think, than any other two religions that you want to name, any of the major religions. If you name some major religions, they're going to have way more differences than Christianity and Islam. So you guys need to look at it and study and try to see what the hell it is going on, because you want to fight with the Muslims and say they're like so far other. And it's really crazy to me. It's really insane. It's really insane. And the Jewish is the same too. They're very, 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 very similar. I would say the Judaism is further away from Christianity and Islam than Islam and Christianity is to they're closer together than they are closer to Judaism. But you have to understand that these are Abrahamic religions, and really Islam and Christianity was born out of Judaism. You know, they say Jesus was a Jew. He was like an imam or whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna move on from this because I know y'all I'm gonna make everybody mad, but I wish I would just kind of look at it more and be a little more open minded. Because you're like talking about tolerance. You're saying that you want to have tolerance, but you're not having tolerance for the Islamic people or the Muslims because they're like the worst ones. Like you feel like they are the devil, like the girl said, they worship the devil or whatever. So maybe you're more friendly to Buddhism or Hinduism. I don't know. Are you more friendly to Judaism? Do all of them worship the devil too? Because you've been brainwashed if you're thinking that Muslims worship the devil and they're like the furthest thing away from Christianity, and they're like that's what somebody said I was talking to. They said it's the opposite of Christianity. I was like, no, that is absolutely not true. Please look it up. It's the same stuff. The book is the same. It has the same stories in it. The Quran has the same stories in it as the Bible. Same stories. One of the few differences is where Islam feels like Jesus wasn't the son of God. They feel like he was a prophet, but they won't go as far to say that Jesus was the son of God. And they don't believe in like the immaculate conception, being that Mother Mary, she just was impregnated by God, just like spontaneously had a baby. Like, they don't believe in that, and they don't believe that Jesus was the son of God. So that's about the only differences. I mean, that you may think that sounds like a lot, but think about other religions though. Think about Hindu. Does Hinduism mention Jesus, or Buddhism, or Judaism? Do any of them mention Jesus? Islam does. Islam looks at Jesus as a prophet. Those other ones don't. None of those other ones. I don't think there is another one. Anyways, like it says,
Yeah, just woke up.
you have a seasonal affective disorder. I'll be doing the